Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode. Today is another special guest episode where I have Dr. Cindy Croy with me. Dr. Cindy is a family medicine provider trained at the University of Missouri-Columbia School of Medicine and did her residency at the University of Kentucky, Lexington. She is currently working in a tech consulting job using her medical skills and expertise to help improve patients' lives after retiring from her private practice. She is married to a physician and has 2 grown sons, and I am so excited to talk to her about what life is like right now. Dr. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Megan. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, you have such an interesting story that I want to share. We're definitely going to get to your cooking adventures, but right now I'd love for you to share with my listeners kind of your journey through your career. And I said retired, but retired is not quite the right word. So
no, not really.
But I'd love for you to share kind of your story of moving through your journey in primary care and transitioning to something, kind of completely different, and starting this cooking venture, which we will get to. But let our listeners know kind of your story.
When I finished residency, my first job was as the first employed physician of a local hospital. My husband had a 3-year fellowship, so I had to keep myself busy till we ended up where we wanted to be. That was a great job. It was great for our situation, but by the end of it, I could tell that my goals for my patients and my practice were in conflict with the goals of the hospital administration, that their focus was on making money and profitability. My focus was on doing what was right for the patients. And there was just some conflict. It was not bad. They were a great company to work for. However, there was just some fundamental conflict there. Yeah. So when my husband finished his fellowship, I did not look for another employed position. I looked for something to make my job fit my life. By this time we had young children, and I needed some more flexibility in my schedule. And after a couple of trial things, I ended up starting my own practice, basically a solo practice at which I worked 2 to 3 days a week, kind of varying on the stage of life of our family. And I did that for almost 20 years.
Wow. Yeah. And solo practice, essentially.
Yes, I had different mid-levels in different times. I had a physician working with me for 7 or 8 years. So, there was a lot of flux in the way that worked, but mostly it was my practice.
Yeah. Excellent. And, of course, a lot of people listening are employed physicians. And I think, from my own experience as an employed physician, I think sometimes we fantasize like, I'll just go open my own thing and then I can do what I want. And, although there is a difference, right, in private practice setting versus an employed position, what you found is that it's not just that you can just do whatever the heck you want. And it sounds like that's part of what ended up getting in your way and sort of stealing some of the joy you had. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, you have to deal with figuring out how to pay taxes and pay your employees and choose office managers and staff, billers, all of those things. And you're the one in charge of doing all that. And you can find good people up to a point, but then they stop working before they leave. So when they actually do leave and you find out, there's a mess to clean up, there's money lost, just, and all of those things, all the stories that you can think of actually happened during my 20 years doing that.
There's the business parts of it that
The
are
business parts are hard.
messy, and we're usually not trained for that. Yeah.
Yes. I have a little better background than most. I'm the only person in my family of origin that doesn't have a business degree. So I learned a lot of those principles. Yeah, it is odd. But I learned a lot of those principles growing up around the dinner table. So that helped me. But still, you still have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, private practice is great. If you have an idea and you want to change the way you do things, you can do it right away. That was my favorite part about it. I got to participate in a research project through the Academy of Family Physicians on the medical home stuff. They did a proof of concept study, and it came through my email, or I saw it in the journal one day, and the physician who was working with me, I said, look at this. What do you think? And she's like, I don't know, let's apply. So we did, and we got to participate, and it was an absolute blast. And, one of the best things I've ever done. But if I'd been in an institution larger, that would have been hard.
Yeah.
And there's lots
of layers of permission.
Right.
Yeah.
And to get to implement the things that they were wanting us to test would have been a lot more onerous. Yeah. So that part of it was really helpful to me, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then speak a little bit about how things were going, towards the end for you and your experience of, feeling really burned out, and the decision to ultimately close your practice after almost 20 years.
Yeah. And I was not, I practiced for a total of 25 years. So I wasn't what a lot of people consider retirement age when I did that. Throughout the course of my career, I noticed more intrusion in the physician-patient relationship. I just kind of felt like there were walls being built between me in the middle of my exam room, between where I was sitting and where my patient was sitting. I was able to leverage the technology so that it was actually helpful to my practice and not a hindrance like a lot of people are experiencing today. But the insurance regulations, you can't order this test because it's been this long, and, all of those prior authorization things, and patient entitlement. I don't owe you anything. My insurance company pays you, all those kinds of attitudes, which I think are partly because of all the changes the healthcare system has experienced in the last almost 30 years since I got out of training. But also it's cultural, the lack of respect for our profession that we've got to get back. And all those things were building up at the same time. I had some external factors, which were pretty major in our lives here. And my support system kind of fell apart. So when I experienced those disrespects at the office, I didn't have any resilience to deal with it. And I tried a couple of pivots. I did little 1 day a week corporate medicine gig for a couple of years. I did some weight loss. I dabbled with GPC for, I think, 4 years, 3.5 years. I did that the last 3 years. And that is a really wonderful model. And it takes a lot of the disrespect out, but it was way early in the process of that being an accepted model of care.
Yeah, a direct primary care practice.
Primary care practice. Yeah. And it was a very difficult sell to our community. Yeah. So that added to my business frustrations. And on top of everything else, I just decided, you know what, I don't have to work anymore. I'm done. And so I quit.
Yeah. Yeah. And you ended up, transitioning into more work in a consulting role that you had. But tell us a little bit about, the time that you took after closing your practice And, before sort of diving in with more of your tech consulting work, which we'll talk about, because, of course, a lot of us have this notion that, well, if I could just have, 3 months off, I would feel better. Like everything would be fine. I would just magically, be fixed, and I'll, go sit on the beach or whatever. And, I think there's more to it. I speak from bias here.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about, kind of what it was like for you.
I had actually been pondering the idea of getting out for probably 3 years, and I just finally got to the point where I was just ready to throw it all away and not be a doctor anymore. I was one of those people that always wanted to be a doctor. If you had asked me 10 years ago what I would do if I won the lottery, is I would still be practicing medicine. I loved it. I loved the relationship with my patients, but that just went away. And so, and I was so probably depressed, very stressed. And what I tell people I did is that I sat on the couch for 3 months. I closed my practice the last day of April, and I didn't do much. I had a little job. I had been doing beta testing and some development testing with lots of different tech companies for 20 years. And so I had a little project that I worked on some for some people, but for the most part, I sat on the couch and thought about, okay, how do I want my life to look? My kids were in college at this time. And so, there was a lot of transition going on in my life. And I thought about what I wanted to do, how I wanted my life to look, where I wanted to go, what kinds of things I wanted to do, how I wanted to contribute. Because in my practice, I saw over and over that people who didn't feel useful or like they were contributing to society in some way, was a big reason for people to feel despairing or depressed. And I spotted that trend early on in my career, so I just watched it all the way through. So I knew I needed to be productive, continue to be productive in some way. And I would always loved working with the tech, but it's like, that's kind of a hard field to get into, and hard to find a position that pays you even a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went through all of this.
They get doctors to weigh in for free. Why would they pay you?
Exactly. So yeah, I spent the summer doing those things, kind of catching up around the house and healing my emotional state and my psychological outlook on things, and kind of figuring out where I wanted to go. And then I found a advertisement for a meeting that was pairing up tech companies, startups with physicians. And so I went to that, and that's how I got my job. But,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, like about the role and how you bring, those years of experience to this work. Because I think a lot of people might listen and they think, oh, tech, I can barely use the EMR. Like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. I beta tested an EHR for the first time in 2001. So way early on. And it got me from sitting in the corner with a pile of paper charts while my little children ate dinner by themselves to being able to eat dinner with them. So I've always been, because it sped up my efficiency with getting my notes done. I've always been a proponent of adding tech, and I always felt like medicine was so far behind in utilizing the options. I did a couple of consults for my children and some friends when they were away, 4 states away in college. And I'm like, why can't I do this for my patients? This can be done over telemedicine. And that was my son started college in 2013. So, it was a while back.
Yeah.
And so that's always been my outlook on things, is like tech can make our lives better. It should make our lives better. It's a tool. Yeah. So what I do in this role is, this is an application which is used at the point of care and it does both the demographic intake, all of that, and it asks the symptom questions, which there are symptom checkers and history, but it uses AI, and we have programmed in symptoms and diagnoses. If you have this diagnosis, you have all these symptoms. So the AI can say, if you have all these symptoms, you might have this. And it does all the charting automatically. And so I've used both my practical in the clinic, this is how the workflows go, and this is how they should go, and why you need to do it this way for the office. I'm the only one in the company who actually has practical primary care experience.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah.
And then also, I spend hours searching up to date, adding symptoms and diagnoses, ICD codes into the computer and that kind of stuff. So it's both the medical knowledge as well as the system and processes knowledge. Yeah. And I love it. It's a blast. Some days I'm really bored because it's spreadsheets forever, but it's still overall, it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. But I think it, just kind of highlights we're often quick to really discount the skills that we have. And yet,
yes,
here you've been in practice for, nearly 30 years, you said, and you've been doing a lot of skills,
yes,
both from a systems perspective and, we'll throw in business perspective and, of course, all that medical knowledge. And now you can do it in this, what I imagine is a lower pressure setting. And
definitely lower pressure.
That you're helping, current physicians who are out there, being able to use the product as well as future, right? Because it's bringing those really necessary, skills and experience into things that could make our lives easier.
Yes, definitely. And I'm a visionary type person. I like to see the big picture. And so that I can focus on that. It's like, we could help millions of people, from this program, if we can get it to work properly, which we're close, but,
Yeah. Thankfully, somebody else gets to do that part.
Yes, definitely. I just tell them what needs to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then, tell us a little bit about your cooking venture and, sort of how you got started and created a YouTube channel, because of course that probably sounds more scary to a lot of people than jumping into tech.
Yeah. I started a website in 2019 for my recipes. As I said, my children were moving off on their own and they kept calling me randomly. How do you make such and such? How do you cook this? Mom, I want to make this. And I was always not near my cookbooks or my recipes, of course. And so I thought, okay, for Christmas, I'm going to make a website and I'm going to give them the address and I'm going to upload my recipes. And so that's what I did. And, I was just playing around with it. And then I discovered coaching the summer of 2020. And in that, I took Sunny Smith's Coaching Empowering Women course. And in that, when it was my turn to ask a question and be coached, they were like, you already have a business. You have a website. All these people are like dithering over whether they're going to have a website, how they're going to do it and all that. You already have one. So you're ahead. And I'm like, oh, okay. Never thought about it that way. And so I started, kind of just filming what I was doing in the kitchen. And the person I ended up having help me with my website, he's like, you need to make videos. And I'm like, okay. So I got my iPhone out, and my niece is a film major. And so she's like, oh, you need to do it this way. You need 2 cameras so that you can film what you're doing. And then you can, okay. So we did all that. I posted in one of the physician forums, anybody wants some free cooking lessons? And I had like 10 people show up to free cooking classes in January of 21. And and that was an absolute blast teaching those classes. And so I've continued to make videos and do some lessons here and there. that kind of stuff. And it's fun. It's a hobby. It's a creative outlet. I come from a family of artists and makers. My sister calls them. They make things and they're beautiful. And I make food, and it's not always beautiful, but it's usually good.
Perfect. And now you're sort of sharing that with a new audience, I think, trying to really, pull in people who don't really know much about cooking and maybe are wanting to learn to cook for themselves, a little bit more from that health perspective. Is that right?
Well, I taught myself to cook when I was in my 40s. That's kind of what my hobby was that decade, while my children were wanting to run and play. They never want to go anywhere. They just wanted all their friends over, and they wanted to chase. I have boys, so they wanted to chase each other
I know
around. Yeah. And so I had to be home to, sort of monitor this. And so I taught myself to cook, because I really, before that, knew how to heat things up and kind of make tuna casserole and tacos. And that was about it. Yeah. So I just learned. I tried things, and I decided I wanted to learn how to make something. And so I pull all the recipes off Google, and I'd experiment and try it. My children like to tease me about the summer I made 100 batches of shortbread because I couldn't get it just right. I think it was probably only 50, but it was still a little excessive. Yeah. But if I ever make you shortbread, it'll be perfect. So I just wanted to share that. I mean, you need to share things with people. And
yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. And, and that's my point, is if I can learn it, I know how to read, I can figure it out. Right. Anybody can do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's, just kind of highlighting, like, it's okay if you get to your 40s and you're otherwise a perfectly functional human being and you don't know how to do it. It's not too late, right? Like, you can learn these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just try it. And, make sure there's frozen pizza and a jar of peanut butter in your kitchen, because if it's a total flop, you got something to eat.
Because that will happen sometimes.
Oh my goodness. It happens a lot, and it's okay.
And that's okay.
As long as you don't take yourself too seriously, it's fine.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, so tell my listeners, we always kind of round out with this question of, going back to the burnout, what do you want somebody who is listening to us talk? And, I hear in your voice, like, just how much fun you're having at this stage. Like, what do you want somebody who is in your shoes from a few years back, when you were feeling really burned out, when you were needing to close your practice? What do you want them to know right now? And especially, I'm thinking about, I think it's helpful for people who are later in their career and thinking like, well, I'm too young to retire, or, I've got more working years in me, but maybe I don't want to be, doing medicine anymore. Like, what would you say to them?
Oh, it's not the end of the world if you quit medicine. And, it's never too late to try something new. I would advise my younger self to have a better support system around them, because that was something that was really lacking. But it's also all of those lies that people tell you, well, you have to keep working. You're a physician. You have to do that. And that's just not true.
The world needs you. So you therefore must.
And it's the same thing that I was told when my children were young. I was surrounded by all of these stay-at-home mothers who thought that was the perfect way to raise their children. Children needed them 24/7. I was not a healthy mom if I was home 24/7. It was really awful. I needed the balance of because if they didn't have a healthy mama, they couldn't be healthy.
Right.
So I had to find the balance for me. And that's what you have to do. You have to figure out what you need and do that. And if you need to take a break from clinical medicine, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay to pivot. Yeah.
I think that's
I didn't have financial pressures because of my husband, but that's an issue for some people, and it's still okay. You can make it through.
Yeah. And I think, what I hear in your story too is, your career doesn't have to look like anyone else's. We
I
sort of
know.
get on this pathway, right? And okay, well, there's medical school and there's residency, and then, you go get your job. And, traditionally you would have stayed there just in one place for years
Right.
and years and years, because that's the way, quote unquote, we
It was
do
done.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
And my husband said to me one time, he's like, I always feel bad because I think you sacrificed your career for our family. And I'm like, what?
Did you
I
not,
got to
did you not see me having my own business
I got to do everything I ever wanted to do. This is a gift, I made my job fit my life, not the other way around.
But somewhere in his mind, he was thinking, because you didn't sort of climb
Have
a
the
traditional medical
Yeah.
ladder. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's funny. I'm gonna have to ponder that. My husband is a MD, PhD academic, lab medicine, and going through those traditional, professor steps. And interesting.
And everybody has a different way of doing it, but it's just because it's different, it's not wrong.
Right. Yeah. And there's a pathway that's right for everybody. Some people, would love to go through that traditional academic path and stay in one place and that is also fine. But love, find a way to love what you're doing and do it because you love it.
And so that you can be healthy, because it's hard to help people be healthy if you're not healthy.
Yes.
So you've got to find a balance somewhere in there for yourself, because nobody's going to be able to tell you how that works.
Right. And nobody's going to come and hand you extra vacation because you need it.
No, no, they are not.
Sometimes they'll put you on leave, but that's different.
Right. Yes.
Oh, I love it. I have a feeling we could talk for a long, long time.
I'm sure we could.
Let's wrap it up by please let my listeners know where they can find out more information. Somebody's out there listening and thinking, I don't know how to cook. I would love to have someone like me teach me how to cook.
I would love to help them. I'd love to teach them. My website is drcindysrecipes.com, and you can sign up for my email list. My YouTube channel is the same name. I think I even have a TikTok now. So drcindysrecipes.com. That's where I am.
Perfect. And we'll have links to all of that in the show notes. Yes, go check her out. Great. And I think I recently saw that you had a recipe go viral. Is that right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. That was so funny. 2,000 views.
Tell us what the recipe was.
I called it Mexican pork and beans. And it's just, you put a pork loin roast and some dried beans in the crock pot and you turn it on. And, 8 hours later, you have like Mexican pork.
Wow. Okay. And everybody just suddenly watched the video and there you go.
Yeah. Yep. They did that day.
It's
something about it hit right. You just never know with Google.
You never know. These algorithms just do all kinds of crazy things. So great. So I will have, like I said, the links in the show notes for listeners who want to learn more about Dr. Cindy and her cooking adventures. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Megan. This was great.
Yeah. I just love getting to hear people's stories and, again, just highlighting that we don't all have to do it the same way. No. And there can be different stages, that fit your life.
Yes.
Perfect.
Make your career fit your life.
Yes. Perfect. All right, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye for now. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.